First off, do you think this is the right call from the Queensland authorities to lift the lockdown at midday today?
Well, I'm assuming that they feel as though they've actually got their arms around this. I think they've probably learnt the lesson from what happened last time. Initially, from the initial time when the doctor got infected, and I'm hoping now that they've had the time to be able to do the contact tracing, to be reasonably sure in terms of the generations and the detective work to work out that they've got this surrounded, and that the testing level is enough to ensure that the odds are very low that cases have escaped. But I think to some degree that's why they do need to maintain some level of restriction. That lever of slowing down movement is still really important to ensure that if there is a case out there or cases out there, that they're not going to be spreading it around too quickly. So no, look, it's hard not to support the current moves at this moment.
There will still be plenty of disappointed families who won't be able to visit their elderly relatives in aged care. We've learnt that only around a third of aged care residents have been vaccinated. Is that good enough at this point?
Oh, look, I would have much preferred that figure to be far higher, because certainly they are the highest risk. I must say that I actually work in aged care, and I could have predicted this would have been the most difficult. It's all very well to have vaccines in a controlled environment where you've got the fridges here and you've got the staff in the one place, but when I work in aged care, having to take all my equipment out there to see patients, and having to not only consider the needs of the individual, but also the staff, but also the relatives, but also to have to work with without all the resources that we normally have is a lot more difficult, and I could have predicted this would be difficult. So really, I think every effort needs to be put into this area to get this done as fast as possible, to get this done as quickly as possible, because they really are the highest risk population as a whole.
Chris, more broadly, which level of government should be copying the blame for the slow vaccine rollout already? We've seen this stoush developing, in particular between the Queensland and New South Wales governments and the Commonwealth.
Can I just say something? I think it's been quite disappointing, the blame game, and the AMA put out a press release to that degree, because it really is detracting from fundamentally a good exercise. I think ultimately there has been a fundamental problem of first up supply, and I don't think people realise that we've got very little of the supply that we were supposed to get from overseas, and that's been the limiting factor. I think the other thing that there has been issues about teething problems, and also to some degree a lack of transparency about where the vaccines have gone, visibility about that, and linking it out to whether we've got them into the people's arms and whether the right people have been vaccinated. Look, we can deal with that later. I think at the moment we are still quite early, and particularly in the GP rollout. There has been criticism on that already, and that we need to go to there's panic stations. I think from my perspective on that front, that has been not helpful, because to be frank, I think up to today, only about 1,500 of the GP practices that were due to come online have come on. Oh no, sorry, 1,500 out of the 4,500 were due to come online have come online, and we've had hardly any supply, and we've still actually escalated the number vaccinated far more than many of the other sources. So really at the moment, any criticism on that front needs to be, we need to hold any judgment of that until much later, because really it's been like only a third of the team has been out in the field, and we haven't even had the ball yet in terms of football terms. And we don't judge things at the start, we judge things at the end. So give that aspect of the rollout a chance, because that is escalating quite quickly, and I feel quite confident that general practitioners are really willing to get this done.
Well, that's good to hear at least. Chris, I'm keen for your view on the research we saw from Pfizer released overnight showing that the Pfizer vaccine is safe for children as young as 12. How crucial is that, and how far off are we here in Australia until we do start vaccinating kids? It's good news that we're starting to see more data about children being able to be vaccinated. Although children tend not to get really sick and die, there has been the odd case. There is also some concerns about what we call long COVID, the long COVID symptoms that are caused that could occur in children. I think the biggest issue is that whether the children as a whole, and there has been sort of a bit of a toing and froing about this as to whether they are actually a source of transmission. And also the problem is that unless we can actually vaccinate the majority of children, we won't be able to get to this, if we can prove the vaccines do this, stop transmission, whether we can get to a thing called herd immunity, so that we can actually, because if we can't vaccinate a significant 20-25% of our population, then they are going to it's still going to continue to go through that community. So getting data about that and the ability to firstly protect them from acute infection, but more importantly, long-term effects, but also being able to vaccinate them so we can build up this ability to stop it going through community will be a really important aspect. So getting this information is a really positive step.
Dr. Chris Moy, appreciate you joining us as always. Thanks so much.
It's a pleasure.